the phone away. Got a little top off left. Good morning, Steven. Good morning, Dario. What's up, guys? Ooh, that's hot. Oh, yeah. Thought about that last minute and decided I'd send that over real quick. Yeah, so for anybody who takes even halfway decent photos of their carpet pythons, you should go check out the, or even if you don't, even if you just like looking at cool snakes, you should go to the Morelia Pick of the Week Facebook page and hop on, I think it's the pinned post now, so it should be the first one you find, about the calendar contest. Every year they do a calendar, and they have the submissions open to everybody to submit, and then it gets, selected, and they do it by like categories, and then they change the last one each year now, so there's a little variety in there, so it's really cool. A lot of cool photos being dropped in there, and yeah, it's worth checking out. And if you take decent photos, then try your hand at getting in the calendar. If you win, you get a free calendar, and then, you could also be chosen as like first place Morelia of the year sort of thing, which is pretty cool too. So, yeah. So check that out. That's at Morelia Pick of the Week. Southwest Carpet Fest is coming up. The shirt campaign is long since over, but they're hilarious. They've got Eric on it, which is just ridiculous, but pretty damn funny. So that'll be in Arroyo Grande. No, Tascadero. Sorry, not Arroyo Grande, I think. Tascadero. Yeah, that's where Brian's at. And there's a Facebook group for it, and there's like a whole way you got to message if you want to go. You can't just show up because his kids live there, so got to be considerate. But that's the next Carpet Fest coming up. Good morning, Ashton. Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Terry. I will not be making it to that Carpet Fest, unfortunately. I have to work, so couldn't get the Sunday off that I needed in order to travel back and not miss the whole thing. So, but then Pomona's coming up after that, and then in September there's going to be the Sacramento Reptile Show out here, so that'll be fun. Anybody hasn't been, that's a big show. It's worth going, and they're doing it in a different venue this year, a bigger venue. They used to do it in the convention center downtown. This year they're doing it at Cal Expo, which is this massive sprawling area of like outdoor and indoor facilities, tons of space. So it should be better for parking, load in, load out, for vendors, and just easier for people to go check out. So a couple shows coming up. I don't think I'm going to vend any of them, though. I'll just be there. So, but I don't know if anybody else trolls around on some of the Facebook pages like Morelia Pick of the Week and pays attention to who's sharing what. But there's a lot hatching out all over the place right now. In particular, Paul Harris over at UK Pythons is just killing it. Absolutely killing it. He's raising the bar in so many ways. He posted photos, and you can go check us out. He's got true ghosts on the ground, so that's the hypo gene in coastals with the exanthic gene. And prior to the hypo gene being available and coming over, we were calling caramel exanthics ghosts, which is not the case. It's not a true ghost. So hypo exanthic has been produced, and it's gorgeous. He also hit some granite zebra tigers that are just beautiful. What else? There's a lot of cool snakes being produced over there by him alone. But then here, oh yeah, he had some crazy selected bred zebras that were just nuts. There's people hatching a lot of jungles right now that I'm seeing posted within the last week that are really cool looking. And I'm surprised to see that there are actually a couple people producing some stripes as well out there. So that's awesome to see. I love it when other people share the same interest in stripes that I do. I'm very obsessed with striped snakes. And Eric Burks got his gelatin jungles pipping this year, so congrats to him on getting those. If there was ever a clutch to nail it, that's a good one to do it. So, speaking of striped jungles, they are all still super mellow, pretty shy, but not defensive. They just like to hide a lot. And they all, with the exception of one animal, have had 2 meals. A couple of them actually strike and wrap it, but most of them just sort of like, we'll take it if I leave it in there. It'll be gone within an hour. So this is one of the girls who's been eating. What the carpets and coffee without a snake. So that's one of the girls. And they're doing well. Like I said, they're eating and putting on some size now. And I mean, they're already big babies because they were maternally incubated. So all of them were like 28, 29, 30 grams. So they're big to begin with. So yeah, Lori Torini just mentioned that they're super mellow, and that is true. Not a single one is defensive, aggressive, or anything. I can pick every one of them up. Not one of them has a bad attitude at all. And I actually was discussing that with a coworker the other day because both parents are pretty tractable and mellow animals. And, how much of that is, heritable trait and how much of that is just because they don't know any better. And we're so far down, the generations of captive breeding these animals that they're so far removed from the wild type and that defensive instinct isn't maybe quite as strong. But, yeah, they're sweethearts. They're wonderful, wonderful snakes. What's your opinion on vitamin supplements with snakes? I was listening to a podcast on bodybuilding that crossed my mind. I know it's a funny subject. Actually, I think it's a great thing to do. I personally don't do it because it's something that I haven't thought of frequently enough to actually go act upon, but I don't think it can hurt as long as you don't over supplement. With younger growing animals, you could probably do a small boost of like calcium and vitamins. I would say you'd probably want to have like your dosage and your actual vitamins verified by somebody who is professionally like experienced with that stuff because you don't want to over supplement a snake as well. If you give them too much calcium, that could be bad. So if you're going to do that, I would see if you can speak to somebody more experienced on the subject and try it. But otherwise, I think when it's done appropriately like that, it can only benefit them. So, so yeah, 15 of 16 of these little snakers are, oh, you just tied yourself in a knot, honey. They're 15 of 16 are eating. Of course, the nicest one, the immediate standout, and the female striped holdback that I'm for sure keeping is the one who's not eating. So I'm going to do a few little tricks with her, like I might try a rat pinky instead of a fuzzy like I've been trying. Maybe she's just doesn't like the smell of mice, and maybe that'll be the trick. If that doesn't do it, might just try to put her in a cup in the tub overnight so she can't avoid the food. So sometimes that works. I used to vitamin C supplement because it's hard to goof that up. I know Harlan Wall is doing that. I'm super curious about it. Yeah, Harlan's a good person to talk to about that. He knows a fair bit of information on that subject. Yeah, Steven, we can take a look at children's pythons for sure. Actually, so I was talking to Andy Grossman, who has been breeding Antaresia for years, and he's a good friend of mine. And I actually got my adults as babies from him. years ago, and so they produced for me this year. I can show you some. I can show you the adults as well, but we'll start with the babies. But I wasn't sure if like they're too small to sex, like if it's just like they're too fragile or something like that. And Andy admittedly was like, I'm not great at sexing snakes by hand like that, so I couldn't tell you. He has a friend do it, and I can understand why, especially with these guys being so small. So here's the tubs I'm keeping them in. I just took the lid off, but these are small enough where the flex that's naturally in plastic is pretty minimal because the size is so small. And 2 layers of paper towel gives them a couple layers of hides and a water dish. And I might even, once they shed out, go a little bit further. But right now I'm keeping it pretty simple. They haven't shed out yet. I just set them up in here, so I'm not really doing much spraying of anything. But this is a huge tub for them. Like, this will last them for quite some time. And half of them, or I should say a few of them, came out at like 8 grams, a few came out at 9 grams, and there's one 7-gram one. But look at how small they are. And this thing's already like trying to be Mrs. Savage. Oh yes, you're so angry. Oh no, this one's one of the boys. So I have another male heavy clutch with 6 boys and 3 girls. Oh, so angry. I want to show you the pattern. There you go, I think. Woo! So they are really small. This one in particular is 8 grams of fury. You might be able to see these guys hemipenes in the shed when they're older. I don't know if you'd see them at this size, but if you're good at popping snakes like carpets and things that are kind of squirrely and skinny, ball pythons are easy to pop in my opinion. No offense to those who can't do it, but if you feel like you are experienced enough at sexing snakes, these guys can be distinguished quite visibly. The males show their tiny little hemipenes pretty easily, and females just don't. But you have to be careful. They're really little. You could hurt them for sure. This thing is so angry. I have to be careful because like I don't want to drop this tiny little thing. So we'll see what happens. These guys are only a few days old right now. They are historically pretty difficult to get established on feed from everything I've gathered from other folks. And that being said, there are a few people having success with using the gecko scent from Reptilinks. And several months back, as soon as I knew that my female was in fact gravid, I decided to purchase their 3-pack set of gecko frog and anole scent. And and so I've got that at the ready, and people have been having gecko scent success from what I hear. But a lot of people end up having to assist feed them. So, I hope the video is working for everyone. Is that behavior typical of this species, and do they retain that feistiness as adults? So typically babies are known for being feisty, crazy little stinkers like that. My 2 that I got from Andy, I got as babies, a few months older than that, of course, and they were sweethearts. They never bit me, and they still don't. They have an insane feeding response, though. They have like a retic-sized feeding response. So that's like one way you could get bit. I'm assuming these babies will grow out of it. They're like 3 days old. So I'm terrifying to them. They're 9 grams. I'm astronomically bigger than them. So I have a feeling that in time they'll mellow out. There's only like one or two that's kind of nippy like that. Most of them, they're flightier more than anything, just because they're so little. And honestly, I try to like limit my handling with them because my fingers are so big. Like picking them up is hard to do it delicately. I have a small hook, but even that's like kind of big. I might need to get one of those specialty enclosure designs from hooks from Brahms, one of those little chondro hooks that Justin Smith uses, and maybe that will reduce stress. So I'll grab some parents, one of the parents, and then we'll sort of shift gears because Lori brings up a good point, and it was another topic I wanted to shift to. All right. So this is the sire. This is an adult male. So he's maybe a little over 2 feet. Like he's not big at all, and he's kind of dark right now because he's probably nearing a shed. But these guys are wonderful, and as babies they have these really bright, beautiful, like coppery orange eyes. They're just really fun snakes. The hipster hook, right? And the female is, just as placid. There are certain like lines people are working with in these, and there are some morphs, I believe. I think there's like a patternless, and I think there's like a granite, and maybe a couple others. I haven't spent too much time looking into it. I just have my one pair, but this is typical size for an adult. So this is a 3.5-year-old male, I think. 2016, yeah. So he's a 3-year-old male, and the female is the same age. So they're really fun and great snakes, but there's a lot of different, behavior going on with these guys. They have that crazy heavy feeding instinct, and they're smart, and they can learn the difference between hands and food and stuff. But I'm curious if the temperament of parents passes down to offspring in any consistent level. Obviously, there's a couple animals in that clutch that are grumpy little things, so that sort of defies that a little bit. But yeah, Lori, your episode on NPR the other day was fantastic. If anybody hasn't listened to the most recent episode of Morelia Python Radio, Lori, who is here with us in the chat, was the guest for the week and spoke a lot about behavior, enrichment, learning with your animals, and a lot of training stuff as well, which was fantastic because in zoos we do that on a daily basis, and it's essential to our work. So it was a great episode, really awesome to hear so much in-depth and well-spoken conversation about the benefits of paying attention to the behavior of your snakes, and in particular I really liked the discussion about flooding behavior or flooding style of training, where you just sort of impose yourself on the animal till they go into what's called learned helplessness. And so much of that is kind of the old school way with snakes, which is interesting because, I talk about progressing snakes and snake keeping further and further, yet we still do that. And I will admit that I do a lot of that. Yeah, the Morelia community is the best, for sure. I'll sing that till the day I die. But I was thinking about that a lot because I admittedly do that, especially with babies. Little babies quite often are nippy, defensive, and that's kind of, a survival instinct across the board with snakes. And my entire clutch of Papuan carpets seems to be that way, which is funny because the parents are not like that at all. But Stephen Katz, suggested that because they are F1s from, farm hatched animals, which means these babies are maybe only 2 generations from actual wild animals, that they still possess a lot of that defensive instinct at the beginning. And there's a female right here staring at me who's just keyed. She will just pop, 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 hit the tub with her face, especially right after I check on her. So like yesterday I did water changes, and I go through and I change everyone's water, and a couple of them like to perch or actually soak in their water. And in order to change their little deli cup, I have to physically remove them, and I can either do it with my fingers or a hook. And there are approaches to how I do this. I can kind of do it behind them and do all this stuff and try and make it as low stress and, sort of as little disturbing behavior as possible, and inevitably it sets them off, and I start getting bit, and they get upset. And then as I'm going down the line, I'll just hear thud, thud, because every time I move in front of her, she's hitting her face. And I would like that behavior to stop. So fortunately, she is eating, and that aggression works in that way, and I'm hoping that she'll translate that a little bit to feeding once we get it a little bit further on and she's had more experience. But I also have a yearling coastal that is just hands off. And so, Lori, your episode the other day had me thinking about that animal in particular, because I know it stresses her out when I handle her. And so I've been using a hook with her because she will bite the heck out of me. And you slowly just kind of work at their pace, and, paying attention to the animal's behavior will tell you when you've crossed the line and gone too far. And if you can keep it from getting like that, you can sort of push that a little bit and progress with that animal's behavior. So with that animal, she used to bite the hook, she used to bite herself, she used to bite me. Like literally every stimuli would result in biting behavior. And now it's gotten to the point where if I open the tub, she's not flying and trying to strike at me. She's alert, and I can get a hook in there, and she'll follow the hook and kind of really nose at it, but she's not biting it, and I can lift her out and even sometimes tail her a little bit without too much of a reaction. And so it's been progress. Ideally, we continue this progress, and by the time she's an adult, we won't have that super defensive, aggressive potential behavior. Now, there's another animal in my collection here. I don't think you can see her. Well, you sort of can. She's right there. There. I don't know. This quality on my computer's camera is not great. So I don't know how great that image came out. It looked grainy for me. But anyway, that is Dot. And I will tell you about Dot. Dot is a super zebra het exanthic produced by Todd Dyer, owned by my buddy Terrell Ziegler of Designer Exotics, one half of Designer Exotics. In fact, I'm going to pause and go on a little tangent. Terrell and April, they're wonderful people. They're not, very active in the digital realm anymore. And April moved out to Memphis for professional reasons, and she's doing really well. And I miss the heck out of both of them. So if by some stretch, Terrell and April, you're watching this or you catch this, what's up? Miss you guys. Miss you both. April, hope all is well. I ought to call her. Good friends. Anyway, so Dot is here on loan from Terrell. And last season she didn't want to go, which doesn't surprise me. Most females need, a year or two to settle into their new surroundings before they're comfortable cycling and going through all that reproductive process. So I'm hoping this year we'll get, better production. But she is an animal who is super cage defensive. If I go in there, it better be hook first, otherwise I will regret it. And she doesn't settle down. And when I put her, into a tub for cleaning and stuff like that and take care of her, I try and do that so it's as low stress as possible. I try to be gentle, use a hook, all that stuff, and try and minimize the amount of biting and try and prevent her from getting to that, level. try and keep it like minimal stress and just a 1-2 shifter. So shift tubs are a great way to minimize stress, but she doesn't go there on her own. Lori's got some wonderful snakes that she's worked with that she was, again, go listen to that episode, that she's taught and they've learned to shift voluntarily, and that's great. So the cleaning process is low stress at all. So that's an example of a very high-strung animal who just, she's always watching me, always trying to bite me if I'm in there, and otherwise I just have to be really careful. So she's big too. She's big. Speaking of super zebras, still waiting on the male to shed. However, this female has shed. She's a little scared and defensive naturally. Again, baby snakes, right? But if you go slow, you can usually work with them. I haven't come up with a name for her yet, and I will think of something awesome. I've actually been writing down lists, things, of ideas. I have 666 subs. Sweet. So here she is. You have a 3-year-old female with the same temperament as her mom, who is my OG 8-foot female, just a sweetheart. Yeah, so I don't know how consistent temperament passes on. The zebra female that produced this clutch was kind of a spitfire when I first got her, and I can handle her now. It took some work just getting her to trust me and realize I'm not hurting her, and then also for me trying to understand her limits. I used to call her Palm Blaster, actually, because she hit me on the palm twice really good as like a 3-year-old, so that was not fun. But she's great now, and I've just respected her boundaries and kept it from ever getting too stressful for her, and doing that consistently over time has built up trust. And I'm hoping to do the same with this girl because she's not going anywhere. You were mentioning animals recognizing people, and that's very true for reticulated pythons. It's actually a form of enrichment for some. If an animal is trusting, they will hand off to new people, just so they get to learn and study a new person. Yeah, definitely. A lot of animals behave differently with individuals. Iguanas in particular are known for that. I work with a rhino iguana that just absolutely seeks out my affection and scratches and attention, but does not show that same behavior to everyone else. So that's interesting. Lori says, I've had some poplin babies that incessantly struck at anything that walked by the opaque tub, and moving them into a terrarium they could see out of stopped the behavior almost immediately. Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but that's sort of like conditioning them to experiencing external stimuli and learning that it's not harmful over time, and letting them sort of come to that realization at their own speed just by exposing them to it slowly but surely. I think that's pretty helpful. That's kind of how I built up trust with my Savannah monitor as a baby. In fact, I let him hide for a couple months, which he chose, and then I progressively moved his enclosure into a little bit more of a visible spot, and spent more time walking in front of him and having more people come by, and he became curious over time. And then eventually, 4 years later, he seeks out attention and food and people, in a lot of ways. So it can take time with some animals for sure, but it's really rewarding. I think it's very, worth doing if your animal gives you an opening to like build that trust behavior Unfortunately, there does seem to be a very, very small and infrequent but present population of carpet pythons that just can be really high strung and just no matter what you do, they're just pretty food aggressive or just defensive or high stress animals. Not to say that you couldn't work with them to improve that, but there are always some that just like really don't they don't want to deal with you no matter how nice and respectful you are to them. So the opaque tub would have to simulate to some degree like having eyes blue before shedding. They become more defensive to the unknown. Yeah, there's a lot of like thought into why some tubs have windows, like those dark gray Freedom Breeder tubs and ARS tubs. Some of them have window options and some don't. Certain animals do like that. Certain animals will find that stressful. And yeah, with certain snakes, you'll find that it can result in them rubbing their face or pushing or striking at it more, being high stress. Or it can, slowly break them of that behavior and teach them that, all this external stimuli is just fine. And she didn't like me picking up my coffee mug. You're all right, sweetheart. She tensed up there for sure. She's been good. Yesterday when I was taking photos of her, she was striking at the camera, so that was a high stress sort of thing for her. Right now she's doing really well. I'm going to put her back. Try to anyway. There you go. Hopefully the male will shed in the next day or so. And then I've got a female, a really nice, just straight jungle looking in that clutch that's just amazing, and I can't wait to see her shed. She's the only like normal jungle in the bunch, and she's just beautiful. And then I've got 3 male zebras. Steven, he's already staking claim to one of them, but they're unreal. There's one female zebra, one, and she's insane. So she's staying. My 3 nieces, who are ages 6 to 10, can handle these 2 snakes no problem. The mom was a snake that I would pull out at the pet store I work so people could hold. Yeah, they can certainly learn that. There's a lot of animals that learn all of that. It can be great. Carpet pythons are just like all around fantastic snakes. Just really good for behavior that, like Lori said, intelligent, very much so. There you go. This is one of the males. Doing all right. A little shy. Chris. No, I think I'm going to keep that female. Sorry, dude. If something changes, you'll be the first to know. But this female, and yeah, she still hasn't shed yet, but she's something else. So I don't think I'll be keeping her. Just only because I have too many. Way too many holdbacks already. But I think she's going to be an A-grade jungle. She's beautiful. So Chris, if you want her, I understand though if you're looking for a zebra. Thank you, Steven. I appreciate that. Yeah, that was a very insane and exciting day to hatch 2 supers, especially doing it here with one of them coming out live. Like, that was awesome. It's been a good season. 4 good clutches. Hit 40 babies overall for the season. Lost 1 egg from the children's, lost 2 from the striped jungles, and lost 6 from the zebra clutch. So 40 out of 49 total eggs for the season. So not bad. And I'll take what I can get. So anyway, that's probably enough of me rambling on. Let's see. Should definitely make sure you catch every episode of Morelia Python Radio this week. Eric's got a really, really awesome lineup of guests for the entire month. So every week is going to be a good episode. Don't forget Carpet Fest, Southwest Carpet Fest is coming up. It's the end of this month, I believe. And yeah, as far as babies that I'll have available, not going to have much available anytime soon, but the 3 male zebras and that female jungle from that clutch will probably be available at some point. I will be making some of the striped jungles available, but not until next year. Just going to hoard them all and Eric Burkett and keep them all and watch them grow. Children's pythons, those will most certainly be available, but from everything I hear with the feeding trials, it might take some time. So if anybody's interested in grabbing a children's python, just be patient, because it's my first time producing the species. It'll be my first time experiencing their potentially difficult feeding habits, and they're pretty small. And, you know, if it takes a while, it might put us right at the winter time, which will close off shipping anyway. So we'll get there when we get there. But if anybody's been on the fence, children's pythons are awesome. Pretty much all the pythons from Australia. I mean, you guys know I'm obsessed with Morelia. But Antaresia, they're very different in their own respects, but very much like carpets in that they're pretty bulletproof. You can keep them more or less the same way. Very intelligent and engaging snakes. So, and they're small, so they don't take up a lot of room. So if you're thinking about it, go for it. Oh, Patrick's going to be at Carpet Fest. Very nice. Yeah, Chris, I'm going to burk it for sure. Yeah, I'm probably going to keep 2 pairs full term from that clutch as well. So we'll see. There's a lot of people who've been waiting for striped jungle, so there's a few people who are already first in line for some of those females. So we'll see. Alrighty. I think I'll probably call it on that. And if anybody's hatching stuff out, good luck. Wish you all the best of luck. And until next week, love, peace, and chicken grease.